Hi, I'm Erica.
And I'm Lynn, and the quilt we have for you today is called Star Surprise.
It is because the longer we looked at it, the more surprises we found in the secondary patterns. I just love this. I'm totally in love with it. We've got all kinds of great designs going here. I think the longer you look at it, the more different patterns you're going to see.
Right, yeah, there's that great, there's the star itself, and then there's that great crisscross pattern with, then you start seeing secondary patterns in there.
And I love this little kind of square on point star too, so.
Yeah, so the colors are really wonderful.
Right, this is a great use of some of your batik scraps that you may have hanging around. Mm-hmm. And a constant background to really pull that together. And it uses a cube and companion, right?
Right, and this is a 6-inch cube and companion, but you could easily convert this pattern into any of the size quilts.
Right, because those shapes are going to be numbered the same across all the cubes if you want to go ahead and make it in a different size.
Right. So let's talk about the star block today.
Okay, sure.
So this is the star block. So it's got a lot of little pieces.
It does.
So it might be a little bit challenging, but I think it's a great challenge.
I do too.
All right. And then I'm going to talk a little bit later about this rectangle connector block.
Right.
Okay, so we're going to start off with, we've got the half squares that we're going to cut out.
Okay.
That's from your cube. And then we've got the chisel.
And that's going to be from our companion.
Right. Okay, so let's start with the chisels.
Okay. Now a chisel's what we call a directional shape. So you actually will want to read your directions and be sure you're laying out your fabric correctly. To do this design, we're actually going to want all of our fabric to be right side up for this.
Right, so not only is it directional, it requires reading the directions.
Yes, it
so
does.
I like that. It's good, easy to keep it straight.
Do as I say and not as I do, because I know if you've watched our videos, I've confessed before, I'm horrible about reading directions. So this is one time you want to go ahead and do that, though.
All right, and because we've got 6x6 dies here, this is a perfect project to make with any of your cutters.
Right.
And your Go Big, you could cut 2 dies at a time, which is, that would make it even faster.
It would.
All right, and then so let's cut the half squares next. And so what I have right now, I'm going to show you that I've got, there's 3 different fabrics here because we have 3 different half squares.
Yeah, if I hold it up, you can get a better look.
And I'm going to just fan fold these, and so I'm actually going to cut 6 layers and show you how easy that is. And all of our fabrics are on the lengthwise grain. It's nice that the mats come with the cubes too.
It really is, and it'll help you. And if you had to go big, gosh, you could be doing 2 of these dies side by side at the same time even.
Right, so here we go. We've got stacks of
half squares for me.
Half squares, yes.
So this is a great example of a square that I would use a little design board and lay out. And I also would recommend going ahead and sewing a sample square. So before I get too carried away with everything with a quilt, I do like to go ahead, cut and sew together a sample of each square just so I can see that I'm doing it correctly and make sure that I'm cutting it correctly. It's a great way to stop yourself if you haven't read the directions about your chisels. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out how I want this last block to look. So using my other squares as a guide, I've got one right here that I can follow. That's going to help me go ahead and go to the sewing machine and keep everything in order.
Yeah, because there's definitely a lot of little pieces.
There's definitely a lot of little pieces. And again, if you went ahead and made this with a different size of cube, you'd have some bigger triangle pieces that you'd be working with. I sometimes really like working with the small pieces, Lynn. So. Right,
and I think it's a big advantage of the Go system because these would not be easy to cut by hand with the rotary cutter, and the Go system just makes it so easy.
Absolutely. So now, while you go ahead and talk about that connector block, I'm going to be sewing these together. And once I get them laid out in the proper order, it's really easy to put those together. My dog-eared corners are going to show me exactly where to lay them out. And I'm going to line them up on my sewing machine so that I am ready to go and can just chain those pieces right together. And I'll be able to get that done in no time and meet you back at the ironing board.
All right. Okay, so we're going to talk about this connector block. And so it is made up of, we've got 6 of the orange rectangles and then 2 of the rectangles of the darker orange in the center. And this is the rectangle that comes in your 6-inch Go Cube. And so what we've done here is we just went ahead and cut out the pieces for you. And this is where you could actually, there's 2 rectangles on the block. Here, I've got it right here. There's 2 rectangles. So with 3 layers of fabric, so really with 6 layers, you could cut 2 of these blocks at one time. So that makes that easy. And what you're going to do, you're going to sew these 2 together in the center, so right there. Then you'll sew these 2 pieces on the ends. You'll sew these 2 side pieces on the short sides. Then you'd sew this row to this row to this row. So that's how that block goes together. And I think this is it's a very sweet block that you could use in other patterns as well if you want to break up your primary star block.
You know, I was just looking at that and thinking that just that block by itself would be a really fun basis for a great baby quilt too, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's very different, I think, what we see in the quilt behind us versus this one. You know, the more contrast there is makes a really big difference with this block too. Because it kind of starts to look like X's and O's, like hugs and kisses.
It does. I'm going to go ahead and sew these 2 pieces together now so that that's going to be the bottom half.
Okay.
So now you have to find something else to talk about, Lynn.
Well, okay, so perfect 1/4-inch seam, right, on all these pieces?
Absolutely, yes.
So all those shapes in your cubes were designed with that perfect 1/4-inch seam, so that makes that simple. And you definitely want to make sure that, you know, before I start any project, I always measure and make sure that my machine is still, all my tools and everything are still measuring.
Are still measuring at your 1/4 inch.
Right.
And that's a really good point. And that is something that I like to try and do at the beginning of every project with my sample block too. Just another great reason to do that.
Right, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I start a project and then I might come back to it a couple months later.
Lynn, that's been known to happen to me too.
Right.
So, and when I'm sewing this together, I am going to go ahead and pay attention just to make sure that I'm lining up right along this seam. And that's just it's gonna do that naturally, but I will double check that to make sure that I'm getting my perfect point there.
Right, you definitely want to make sure that that's accurate, the way that that's put together.
Absolutely.
So back to with the 1/4-inch seam. So if you're using a scant 1/4-inch seam or something like that, and you don't note it on a project that you've kind of walked away from for a little bit, then it can not go together as well once you get back to it.
Once you get back to it, absolutely. So I do like to check that.
Wow, that looks great.
So that just went together so slick, and it'll fit right in with our project there. So like you said, it is a 6-inch block. It does have a lot of little pieces, but really goes together super easily. You can see I've got perfect points meeting here on all of them. It's going to go together. We'd sew these 2 pieces together and then sew the 4 together. And that'll give us our star block here. And Lynn's already showed us how easy that connector block is.
Right, and then just follow the directions in your pattern and lay out all of your blocks and put your top together, and you'll be finished in no time.
Good to go.
So you can download this pattern at AccuQuilt.com.
And we hope you'll post pictures of your version of this quilt and look for more inspiration from us. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest.
At AccuQuilt, we help you cut time
So you can quilt more.